Hello, this particular tutorial is concerned with scatterplots, and you will see this referred to in the textbook in figure 10.17. To give you an idea of what we are aiming to get, I've actually got a scatterplot here, Richard Swimming Survey. This is what we're trying to get from the data, and you'll see here that what we've got is we've got on the y-axis a number of visits to the pool, okay, which is shown here, and this corresponds to the y-axis given here, this data, and on the x-axis we've got the time taken to reach the pool. These are paired values. That means that each one of these dots represents one person who has answered the question, how long does it take to reach the pool, and how many visits do you make to the pool? So this refers to the questionnaire, and questions 9 and 10 here in the survey, which is also within the book. Okay, so this is what we're actually looking for. We're going to try to get this particular chart. You can see that what we're trying to get is some sort of relationship between number of visits to the pool and the time taken. And here you'll see it represented in this particular case by this dotted line. We'll explain what that means. Okay, so I've gotten rid of the diagram, the chart, so we can just have a look at how we're going to construct that from the table here. Here we've shown questions 9 and 10 from a questionnaire, and there are 13 people, remember, within the actual survey. It's not a great survey, not massive, but it might give us some idea. Now, this is probably the easiest way to construct the actual scatter plot. We have in this column here what Excel would normally regard as the X values, the X-axis values, and the next column is normally regarded by default in Excel as the Y-axis. Alright, let's have a look then at constructing our chart. The first thing to do is to highlight the data. So if you get your cursor, one way to do to highlight your data is to left click, drag your cursor across, drag everything down, and then release. And that is your data. We now need to insert a chart. So go to the insert button at the top, left click on that, go across to the recommend to the charts, and you'll see here it's this sort of chart here, a scatter chart. Let's click on that, and we're going to go for the simple one here at the top, left click on that, and you'll see this particular chart here emerges. It's already got some the axis drawn on it. Let's have a look and see what we can do with this. If we left click on the plus button here, the chart elements, you'll see that we've got the axes already on, the X and Y axis. So that's given us this data along here. Okay, it's given us those numbers. And we want to have some axis titles on. So let's click on that one, left click on that, and that puts these axis titles in here. Right. Okay. Remember I said the very first column normally is the x-axis by default. So the time taken to reach the pool in minutes is the x-axis, which is this one. So let's go and type in there time taken to reach pool. That's that one. Then we're going to look at the y-axis. By default, Excel will take the next column is the y-axis. Click on it, left click into it, just backspace, and then put number of visits to pool. Just get rid of the rest. Okay, so that's better. Now then, let's have another look at what we need to put in. So if we just click on it again and look within the chart elements, what else can we do? Right, well, we've got time taken to reach the pool. Actually, that should be in minutes, shouldn't it? So we'll just click on that, go to the bottom, and we'll put mins. Taken to reach pool. That's better. Everything else looks alright. Now we want to put some sort of trend line on here ideally. So again, go back to the chart elements. You'll see at the bottom we have something called trend line. It's automatically put a nice straight line in there, which is great. Ideally we want a straight line relationship. Let's see if we can get some more information on there as well though. So if we go over to the little triangle here and click on it and click under more options, you'll see that lots of different things we can have. We're going to stick with that particular trend line there, but we're also going, if you go down, we're going to display the R squared value. Click on this. This gives us an R squared value here, 0.5597. Okay. Okay, a little explanation now about what R squared is. R squared, first of all, it can take any values from 0 to 1, and the closer to 1 that the value is, the better the correlation between the two variables in the chart. So an R squared value of 1, which is very unlikely, indicates total correlation, whereas an R squared value of 0 indicates no correlation at all. So how do we use this R squared value? Well, let's have a look at it. 0.5597. Let's just round that up to 2 decimal places. It's 0.56. Right. So you can state that 56% of the variation in your y-axis, which is the number of visits to the pool in June, is explained by the variation in the x-axis variable, which is the time taken to reach the pool. Now that's pretty good to be able to write that down if you have this data and you have your chart. Another value which is associated with correlation is Pearson's R, and that's usually a little r. Pearson's R. Now to get that, you just take the square root of R squared. So I've got my calculator here. So if I put in 0.56, then if I hit the square root, you'll see that it comes up with 0.748. So that is your Pearson's R. Right, now Pearson's R, this actually can be plus or minus, you must have realised that. Pearson's R it goes from 0 to 1, or from 0 to -1. Now the plus or minus depends upon the slope. Here you'll see the slope is going downwards from right to left. This is a negative slope. So actually we do know that that would be minus 0.56. Sorry, minus 0.74. But there you go, you've got another value which you can use. And you'll see here that 0.74 is fairly close to the 1, in this case the -1. So it's quite a strong value. So you can again quote that when you're talking about your table. Okay, well that's the end of this little mini tutorial which just shows you how to create a scatter plot from variables which you've put into Excel, which you've arranged them in the order which Excel normally accepts, Remember this being the x-axis and that being the y-axis. If you want further notes, please look back to the Online Resource Centre where you will find a written version of this under your data analysis. Okay, there is another Excel Scatterplot tutorial, and this one uses the case where you haven't got the data so neatly arranged like this next to each other in the columns the right way around. Okay, so you can have a look at that one, and rather than using Scatterplot example 1, it uses Scatterplot example 2. Okay.